From the Mumbai studios of Republic TV, it's time for Arnab Goswami on The Debate.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight, all Afghan citizens face permanent quarantine. New rules issued by the Taliban. No Afghan can travel out of his country anymore. No Afghan. The Taliban has told the last American to get out by 31st. And signs of what will happen after that are already visible. Stories the Western media is not reporting: in Kandahar, there have been public executions in stadiums of Afghan commanders. In Baghdad province, the police chief held his hands tied behind his back, shot dead point blank, with the Taliban firing their machine guns into his body like maniacs well after he was dead. In Kabul, translators for foreign embassies just doing their jobs, pulled out, publicly lashed black and blue. Others killed for holding the Afghan flag on their Independence Day. And yet America says, don't blame us, don't blame us. Any young girl over the age of 15 in some Taliban areas is being picked up and forced into sexual slavery to serve the Taliban. And all the Americans who do a deal with these Taliban perverts say, don't blame us, don't blame us. The M4 carbines and M16 rifles the Taliban use are American supplied. America refuses point blank to impose sanctions on the Taliban, and in fact leaves all its critical firearms and military assets for the Taliban to use. And as their Taliban partners tell women to stay at home or risk assault, all the Americans say is, don't blame us, don't blame us. Women have been lashed, and there are videos of this. Women are publicly lashed for speaking to men in Herat. And all the Americans say is, don't blame us. Republic is flooded, ladies and gentlemen, with videos of the reality the Western media is not reporting. And tonight I shall go across to 6 global capitals in my opening section on why we cannot, we must not, and we cannot, if we don't want to repeat historical wrongs, let America off the hook. The same country which says, don't blame us, ladies and gentlemen. No, they have to be blamed. Blame has to be pointed at them. And we have to be the first in leading the charge on the Americans. That's debate number 1 tonight, viewers. The Taliban has tonight locked, blocked, and imprisoned Afghans on their own soil. America is shrugging its shoulders. The world's greatest betrayal, with America in the lead role. That's debate number 1 and debate number 2 tonight. Anti-national statement after anti-national statement coming out of the Vadra Congress camp. Top brass silent. Captain Amrinder yet to take action. Has it become the Vadra Congress tradition to take a pro-Pakistan line? That's debate number 2. And debate number 3 tonight after the Aligarh Muslim University VC condole late Kalyan Singh's demise. Some students protesting against him, calling out the AMU students' hypocrisy and intolerance on debate number 3. And here are the headlines this Wednesday evening on the debate tonight. Taliban blocks Afghans from leaving the nation, imprisons its own citizens within the country.
Sir, it happened to me when I was crossing airport.
And these ghastly scenes play out on the streets of Kabul. The Taliban won't even spare foreign nationals. With a mindless and selfish policy, America has thrown Afghans to the wolves. Great betrayal is on global display.
Pretty much the same It is the same Taliban that was there 20 years ago. The news reports and reports from the expats who have come from there are all telling us the kind of activities that Taliban is into. All that has happened is that the partners have now changed.
India calls out the Taliban with unsparing words. Chief of Defence Staff says it's the same Taliban with new partners. Vadra Gandhi's go silent on anti-India comments by its leaders. Is pro-Pakistan line officially part of the Congress tradition now? And they will mourn Afzal Guru and lament Mananwani's death, but some AMU students threaten the VC for condoling Kalyan Singh's demise. And ladies and gentlemen, there are countless visuals which we will beam to you tonight. And these are a sliver of the reality in Afghanistan. A reality told by the Republic Media Network crews and Afghans on the ground across Afghanistan. What the US has enabled in Afghanistan is the unleashing of Taliban terror. Watch the horrors of Taliban pour out of Afghanistan, and then we debate with the Americans on the world's greatest ever betrayal.
The world's greatest betrayal, set in motion by the United States of America. The Taliban has blocked and sealed off exits for Afghans. The people of Afghanistan and foreigners in Afghanistan flogged and beaten and trapped in this horrific reality with no way out.
See, this happened to me when I was crossing airport.
5 visuals tonight scream with shrill the scale of Washington's betrayal. His head soaked in blood, gunshots in the background as this Australian citizen trapped in Kabul narrates the Taliban attack on him. They attack him again as it happens.
When I was crossing airport.
In Baghdis province, the Taliban executed a police chief after he surrendered a few days ago. In Jalalabad, Taliban terrorists fired at a fearless rally of resistance. In Kandahar, 4 Afghan commanders who worked with the US till not long ago were publicly executed by the Taliban. In Kabul, translators who worked for Americans have been left behind, leaving these Afghans to be tortured at the hands of the Taliban. The Taliban diktats against women have begun. The Taliban has officially announced that women should not leave home or be employed. Horrors are being narrated on how the Taliban are going door to door to abduct young girls. As reports of a secret CIA meeting with the Taliban made headlines, there's no question that Washington enabled the Taliban weaponization by leaving behind large-scale equipment that the Taliban has now inherited against Afghans. And India has called out the Taliban in US presence.
It is pretty much the same. It is the same Taliban that was there 20 years ago. The news reports and reports from the expats who have come from there are all telling us the kind of activities that Taliban is into. All that has happened is that the partners have now changed.
Will the world let America pull off its biggest betrayal? India won't. Let's debate.
lot of feedback coming into our debates. A lot of viewers tuning into Republic globally. And the common refrain of most people is that the other Western media channels have sanitized the truth. They're not showing the facts on the ground. They're not reporting the public executions. They're not reporting the attacks, the entering into homes, the killing of journalists, the beating of people for simply carrying the Afghan flag. Everything has been censored, we are told right now. So we are getting a lot of feedback across the world. And joining me tonight is Dov Zekim. He's joining us from Washington. He's the former Undersecretary of Defense in the George W. Bush administration and currently senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. He's joining us from Washington, D.C. We have Netha C. Crawford. She's professor and chair of the Department of Political Science at Boston University. We have Charles A. Kupchan. He's senior fellow counsel on foreign relations and professor of international affairs at Georgetown University. And Anders Kaur is publisher of the Journal of Political Risk. Joining us also from Kabul is Shukriya Barakzai, former MP and former diplomat, very brave and outspoken, live from Kabul. Mursal Nurzai, Afghani activist, she's joining us from Germany. Mohandas Pai, well-known commentator, chairman at Aaron Capital, is joining us from Bengaluru, and Nupur Sharma, national spokesperson of the BJP and senior advocate in our Supreme Court, joining us from Delhi. May I start with you, Mr. Zekim? The pictures are getting ghastlier by the minute. By the minute. We have started seeing public executions. All we are hearing from America constantly is we are trying to get back as many Americans as possible. But not one word on what the Taliban has unleashed. Even your media has gone silent. The situation is terrible. Today they've said no Afghan will ever be allowed to leave the country. And you know what happened in Kandahar. Former Afghan commanders were dragged to a stadium and publicly executed. And this is only the start. How can America stop taking responsibility when it has entered into this partnership with the Taliban?
Well, let me begin by saying that nothing that you have shown and talked about is something that I didn't know because, and I'm no fan of the media. I think a lot of our media are, well, let me just say I don't entirely agree with them, but this has all been reported. So that's number one. I think number two, to say that America is not pulling Afghans out is totally inaccurate. I'm personally involved in pulling Afghans out, and we have gotten them out. There are tons of them, literally hundreds of them, and they keep coming into Doha to the American air base at Al Udeid. Does that mean that we should have had a deadline of August 31st? Personally, no. I don't agree with that. I didn't agree with the deal. Does that mean that we shouldn't extend the deadline? Personally, I think we should extend the deadline. But I think hyperbole does not help. Once we get as many people out as we can, both Americans and Afghans and third country people, then we start looking at what are we dealing with here? It just seems to me that posturing, which is what you have done, sir, is not helping anybody. What is India going to be doing? I worked with India when I was undersecretary, and I helped India get its initial two consulates in Afghanistan because I thought it was terribly important that India have a relationship with Afghanistan. Taliban doesn't want you. We know that. But don't start pointing fingers at us until we know what happens after we've got people out. And I think that it's a huge mistake for a country that we're actually quite close with, namely India, to have this kind of vituperative attacks. This was not the greatest betrayal in history. Ask the Czechs in 1938, sir. this was not the greatest. Was it a mistake? I agree. But for God's sake, let's focus on getting people out before
Mr. Zakim, I've heard your
hyperbole.
Yeah, I hear your perspective. You completely wrongly accuse me of posturing. I will equally tell you that you must be brave to look at the facts. And I blame you, not you personally. I blame your country, the United States of America, for the situation today where in Herat, any woman, any young girl over the age of 15 is pulled out to be a sexual slave to the Taliban, right? Any woman, any widow below the age of 40 is pulled into the sexual slavery of the Taliban. I blame you, sir. What you're saying is the same old technical argument about whether 31st was a right or wrong date. The world is not interested in your technicality. The world wants to know whether you take any responsibility for what the Afghan people are going through. What you are saying is, we are not taking responsibility. You point the finger at my country, India. Well, let me tell you, we are not ever saying to the rest of the world, we are the saviors of the world. It's America which says, we are the saviors of the world. So the onus is on you, and that is why this is the world's greatest betrayal. Maybe you should hear, and one more thing about culpability. Culpability is also moral. Think of your moral culpability. Please understand, India has had the closest relationship with Afghanistan since the early 80s. So it is wrong to say that America was solely responsible in facilitating a diplomatic relationship with Afghanistan. No, sir, don't think you're so important. You don't need to do that.
I never said.
No. You indicated that. What I'm asking you, and what I'm asking you is simply this: to what is happening to the Afghan people, what is your responsibility? What is your responsibility when the police chief who worked for you, who served under you, a man you knew, you cultivated, is held, his hands held behind his back? Have you seen the shot of how he was killed? Point blank, his lifeless body, bullets pumped in by these savages. What you're saying is, what you're saying is, that's not my problem, it never was. You're saying that's not my problem, it never was.
Don't tell me what I'm saying until you hear me. Now listen here. You asked me to be on your show, then let me speak.
Don't get aggressive with me, sir. Don't get aggressive. Listen to the other side. Be tolerant to criticism. Don't get touchy with me. Don't get touchy with me. I am asking you, I asked you on my show. I asked you on my show, and I know that you ought to. You ought to take. I asked you on my show, but I don't want you to be touchy with me. I don't want you to point the finger at me.
You're not letting me speak. Will you please let?
I am only asking you face to face. I'm showing you a mirror tonight. You're not being able to face it.
Excuse me, you won't let me speak. If you will let me speak, then I will answer you. I will tell you again, I do not agree with what we did. Personally, I don't. Secondly, right now, the issue is simply to avoid more of the kind of killings that you've talked about. And that is to get as many people out as we can. That's not a technicality. It's certainly not a technicality for the people at the airport and for the people who are trying to get into the airport. Once that is done, for better or for worse, then we can evaluate. Then you can try pointing fingers. Then there's much to say.
Mr. Zakim,
but not right
Mr.
now.
Zakim, let me tell you one thing. I'll get in here the other perspective tonight. And you, listen, I mean, this is straightforward talk, right? This is not where we dole out the red carpet and ask the soft questions. The question is, I'd like to bring in Shukriya Barakzai in Kabul. Maybe she'll tell you about what she fears, what the worries are, and what the culpability otherwise of America is. Shukriya ji, what's the situation there? What should be American culpability in this?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I believe what was the report, it's clearly said the situation in Afghanistan, the chaos, the disaster, which is we are witnessing today. But there are some questions that no one can say they are not responsible for it. First of all, who gave the legitimacy to the terrorist group of Taliban? Who signed Doha Agreement under name of peace process with the Taliban? Who gave international floor and diplomacy for the Taliban? Who bring hope for the peace in the minds and hearts of Afghan people? Who came Afghanistan to remove Taliban? And who facilitate back after 20 years, $2 trillion, thousands dead bodies, and millions of desperate people in Afghanistan to bring back Taliban? I think those questions needs to be answered responsibly. Everybody should take their own responsibility. When it comes to today chaos in Afghanistan, when it comes to devastation of the people in Afghanistan, when it comes to us as a women in Afghanistan, I think this is important. Globally and widely, everyone should feel shame about the dirty deal with giving opportunity for the terrorist group and bringing back another terrorist group more powerful, more brutal than before in power back in Afghanistan. And right now, everybody is not focusing about what is going on in Afghanistan. Afghanistan become just the one dot in the airport of international airport of Kabul. Today, you are just witnessing and seeing one part, which is you cannot, as a human being, accept such a kind of behavior, which is it's going on with the people of Afghanistan. But forget about the rest of the country. How many million needs to be evacuated from Afghanistan? That's not the way. That is not the right decision. How many millions you will take them out? Do you understand the feeling? I was at the airport. You know why? Because I knew Taliban was after me. Because they believe I'm your puppet. Because they believe I was part of that administration, which is they are following your rules, although they're absolutely wrong. Whatever I done as a woman being, I'm proud about my job. I'm proud about our values and our sacrifice and our achievement. But today when I see our achievement is going to be calculated with zero, and today when I'm seeing after 23 years hard work, taking risk, again, I should start from the beginning. Again, I should be the work, and especially the terrorist group, to let the girls go to the school or allow them to be a university student or accept them there physically on the streets while they're working. That's not make a sense. Why we should have stepped back rather than having stepped forward. We agreed mentally that yes, political settlement will be better opportunity rather than military disaster. But right now, militarily and politically, the Afghans was being failed, and that's not the Afghans. Unfortunately, we are the one to paying the price. That's another dirty game. That's another scenario. Why Taliban weren't be able to take for last 20 years at 10 districts with their white flags to be controlled. But today they are taking whole country under their control, and everybody's just watching. Taliban beat on me, they beat me. I was just a meter away from US soldier. I know this is not the responsibility of the US soldier to stop me from the Taliban, but this is the responsibility of United States of America, that they legitimize the Taliban and they bring them back in power. After all, I don't know which kind of answer you will have for your own nation, for those lives that was been taken in 9/11 and after 9/11 in Afghanistan. And I don't know, do you have anything sense of human being? I mean, this is a general to those politicians that they sign that shameful agreement in Doha, and they provide the opportunity and they support, and they was begging Taliban. And right now it's simply they are begging Taliban to, oh, excuse us, let us to be extend our mission more than 31st of August. This is not the way you should talk to a terrorist group. You know, it's shame on those countries which is they clapped for those Doha in 29th February 2020. And this is the chaos that we are, the Afghan innocent men, women, children are paying the price. I think enough is enough for us.
Yeah.
We've been always the remote in the hands of big powers to put us all the time to fight with each other. But right now, I think the new generation of Afghanistan cannot tolerate anymore this type of brutality as today we are witnessing. That's why the schools are closed. That's why the universities are closed. That's why they are not letting people to go to the work, because Taliban understand the power of people and people themselves understand. But yes, this is truth that we've been betrayed badly.
Well,
historically, that's not the right thing that Afghans will be treated.
What I take particular offense to is the manner in which you, Mr. Zakim, began today, where essentially you said, once we get whoever we can put out, then we will see who and what we are dealing with. And the question that everyone's asking is, and I want Charles to come in on this along with Chris Alexander, who's joining us. He's a diplomat, politician, entrepreneur. He served as Canada's Minister for Citizenship and Immigration. He's joining us from Denmark. The question is, till then what? Till then, all the American arms, Charles, are being used by the Taliban. All the M4 and M16 rifles are American supplied. Let's be clear about it. 600,000 small arms, 76,000 vehicles, 208 airplanes. Everything has been handed over unofficially to the Taliban. So whatever the Taliban is doing today is part of an arrangement with America. And Charles, this is not me. Everyone is beginning to strongly ask these questions. I think America should drop the mask now. What do you think, Charles? What do you think? I said drop the mask. Say we have an arrangement with the Taliban. We go public about it.
Let me offer a few opening comments about this broader debate. First, when you portray this as a grand betrayal, the greatest betrayal in history, it's worth keeping in mind that the United States spent the last 20 years, trillions of dollars, lots of lives, lots of effort to make Afghanistan a better place, to defend the rights of women, to push back against the Taliban, to promote human and civil rights. So that's a big effort. The Biden administration, in the wake of the Trump administration, made the decision that that effort wasn't working because Afghanistan wasn't coming together in a way that could prepare it to stand on its own 2 feet. That was the basis for the decision to withdraw. Secondly, in your opening segment, you had some very strong images. Why didn't you have other images? Why didn't you have images of the evacuation? Why don't you try to portray a more balanced view of what's going on here? As Dov Zakheim said, people here are opening their homes to Afghan refugees. We had a meeting here in my community about resettling 175 Afghan families in the coming weeks. Now, is that a huge number? No, but it's a more balanced picture than the one that you portrayed. Final comment, this is not about the United States giving weapons and supporting the Taliban. What happened here is that the United States did make a misjudgment, and we need to be honest about that, about how quickly the Taliban would take over the country. It's because of that misjudgment that the folks that are trying to get out of Kabul are having such a difficult time. It's because of that misjudgment that weapons that should have been taken out of the country are now falling into the hands of the Taliban. But it's a very, very complicated picture. To portray this as the great betrayal begs the question, where was India? How many troops have you had on the ground in Afghanistan helping? So to point the finger at only us at this point seems to me to be a gross mischaracterization of what's going on.
Well, you know, that is indeed your perspective, which I would turn around and say is completely misplaced. It's part of the usual defensive American narrative to point the finger at others. I'd be more pointed with you, Charles. Why don't you impose sanctions? Why don't you impose sanctions?
Sanctions on the Taliban?
Impose sanctions.
Well,
on Pakistan.
Impose sanctions. Yes, Chris is coming in. Chris says on Pakistan. Yes, Chris. Go ahead, Chris. Chris Alexander from Denmark asking you a counter question. He's been Canada's central minister. He's a diplomat, politician, and entrepreneur. Yes, go ahead, Chris. You can respond to Charles.
Well, unfortunately, this has become a partisan debate in the United States with people trying to defend President Biden, who came in with great hopes attached to him. And I would admit that the current failure is not principally his responsibility. The deal signed in 2020 by the Trump administration was an absolute disaster. It will go down in history as one of the most dishonorable documents the United States has ever signed. And I would say it was only possible because of the darkness, I can't come up with a better word, the immoral, nihilistic darkness that was the Trump era. And you also had Zalmay Khalilzad, a U.S. envoy of some standing, desperate to be back in the game because his Afghan-American rival was the president of Afghanistan, and he wanted leverage over the situation. So this was a perfect storm. But all of that conceals the real issue, which is that the real tragedy, which is that the United States still hasn't named the real author of their misfortune and their failure. It wasn't U.S. policymakers. It wasn't Afghans who didn't come together. It was Pakistan's ISI, which created the Taliban in the early 90s. And here you have to listen to the most knowledgeable Americans. Peter Thompson, chargé d'affaires at that time, says and chronicles how the ISI founded the Taliban and has used it as an instrument of state power ever since. Mike Mullen, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, got very tough with Pakistan in his final weeks and months in office. He recently said, a week ago, that this duplicity has gone on long enough. Pakistan has pretended to be an ally of the United States and has instead stabbed the U.S. and everyone else in the back. And he said the United States should be cutting Pakistan loose. He used those terms. And so what does that mean? To me, it means something very simple. Pakistan has not been held to the normal rules of behavior of the international system. Invading another country is a very serious matter. And that is what they've done. They saw the Doha Agreement signed in 2020, set a schedule in General Headquarters on the advice of ISI for an invasion to begin when U.S. troops, foreign troops left, which according to the agreement was the end of April. They delayed it slightly. General Bajwa came to Kabul on May the 10th. And the next day, this invasion began. And the United States did not, even at that time, fully know what Pakistan's agenda was. That is an unprecedented failure. It's not just a failure for the United States. I don't think there's any democracy, any state that saw clearly what Pakistan was doing. And they're only doing this because of impunity, because they've been waging war in Afghanistan, mostly by irregular means, for 4 to 5 decades. It's all part of their need to compensate for the loss of East Pakistan, this doctrine of strategic depth and global jihad that has been embraced by successive generals from Mirza Aslam Beg forward, including Musharraf, including Kayani, and including today's Bajwa. It's a big threat to global peace and security. The terrorist groups that have come out of this doctrine, Al-Qaeda, the Haqqani network, terrorist groups threatening Central Asia. They've committed major acts of terror on 3 continents. And still, we do not trace the accountability back as an international community to where it actually belongs. We need to wake up. We need to hold Pakistan to the same standards that we hold any other state. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014, the response was swift. Sanctions. It stopped that invasion in its tracks, even though Russia denied that they were behind it. Pakistan can no longer deny what they are doing in Afghanistan. They're treating it as a colony, and their fingerprints are all over the invasion that just took Kabul. So let's sanction Pakistan. Let's sanction those responsible, and let's start to bring rule-based accountability to this part of the world.
Yeah, see, personally, I think, America's policy towards Pakistan is riddled with with hypocrisies. And nobody in the world believes, and I'm sure Mr. Zakim should not take this poorly, nobody in the world believes you didn't know that Osama bin Laden was in Abbottabad till you sent in your choppers. It was an understanding you had, unless your intelligence is so poor. You've given these people a leeway. What you're hearing tonight, and I want to bring in Ms. Crawford on this, what you're hearing tonight are cries from the Afghan people who are saying, do you even have any idea of what the people of Afghanistan are going through? While all Americans say, Ms. Crawford, is don't ask us, we're doing the best we'll do. We'll call you over home and share our Christmas lunches with you this time for the few hundred Afghans who we bring over. The cries of the Afghan people are something that perhaps you've decided not to respond to. But the entire picture is that of a partnership with the Taliban, Ms. Crawford. Otherwise, why would you not impose sanctions? Why would you not, why would you not issue an ultimatum to the Taliban instead of meekly following their orders?
Okay, well, there are sanctions against the Taliban. There are international sanctions. The United Nations has sanctions against the Taliban. The question that people face, of course, in a humanitarian disaster that's unfolding because of drought and because of 20 years of war on top of the previous 20 years of war is, can international aid help people? Can the aid reach the people who need it in all parts of Afghanistan? I don't think we should blame the United States entirely for this fiasco, this catastrophe. I think we have to blame the Taliban. And I agree with the ambassador. Some of the blame goes to Pakistan's support of the Taliban, but I think we need to blame the Taliban. When Taliban shoot, kill, arrest, torture, behead, they're doing it. The United States isn't doing it.
But they're using your Humvees.
Did capture arms.
Ms. Crawford, they're using your Humvees, they're using your armory, they're using your rifles, they're using your armament, they are using your small arms. Weapons. No, they're doing it. You left it all for them. It's obvious.
They captured the weapons that were available
weaponized
to them after
you have weaponized them as you left.
Afghan national military left.
No. You weaponized them as you left. You have left your entire critical firearms for them. Ms. Crawford, please don't deny this.
Many of the weapons were actually taken away
they are going.
On
So they are going.
And the Afghan National
Ms. Crawford,
Army
I'm surprised. You asked Murzal today, who's from Munich today. She's an activist. Do you know what's happening in Afghanistan is that women are being pulled out. A woman who's seen talking to a man for 80 seconds is pulled out and publicly lashed.
Yes.
You can ask Murzal that. You can ask Murzal that.
I believe that the most important thing that you've said today.
Let me get Murzal to respond to you because I have
a very bad deal.
Murzal
constructed without having the Afghan national government present at Doha. The negotiations without the
Today, as the Taliban, and my question is, as the Taliban go door to door looking for girls over the age of 15 and forcing them into sexual slavery, you're saying, we're not responsible, don't talk to us, it's their problem. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying
let us get our American citizens out. Murzal, please. Murzal, thank you. Murzal.
Thank you for having me, Arnab, again. And my question is to the panel from the U.S. And very respectfully, as someone who belongs to Afghanistan and is living in Germany since many, many years, I'm a German national. I have very sensible questions to you. Let's not, I'm not trying to blame you, but let's start with the fact that if we have a cancer in our leg, we try to cut the leg, right? We will not let it grow. So my question to you is, if we know that there is a source that's being supporting Taliban, we know that there is an organization, there is a country where Taliban are getting their resources, getting medical aids, getting all kind of support, why are we not focused on treating the cause while rather seeing at where it's going to? right? This is my first point. The second point is, I'm hearing that U.S. is helping taking Afghans out of the country, or those people who have worked with the U.S. They're trying to help them getting refuge. But what will happen to the fate of millions of women and children who will be still in Afghanistan and who will be still facing Taliban? What will happen to the childhood of those children who are so innocent? They have done nothing. What will happen to the women who have had dreams since last 20 years because of the promises that West has made? What will happen to the mothers of both sides, US, whether it's UK, whether it's Germany, those mothers who have lost their sons in the war, those mothers who have lost their sons in Afghanistan in the war? What will happen to them? Is this justice? Are we treating the core? Or we are again going to just give Afghanistan to Taliban and then China and Pakistan and so many other people who are interested to the trillions of dollars under beneath the land of Afghanistan? These are the questions that we as human and the humanitarian people should ask themselves, and we should treat the core.
Yes, Mursal. Mursal, may I get in also? May I get in Anders from who's joining us from the UK, and Mohandas Pai and Nupur have not come into the debate. At the same time, the point being made, Anders, is you can't. I mean, America can't walk away from this tragedy that it's unleashed on the people of Afghanistan just because some of the Western media is complicit in this. And they've been obviously saying, like the Washington Post, Taliban insists has changed, America's future hinges on whether that's true. That's the kind of headline we are seeing in the Washington Post, for example. But this has been enabled by the West. You can't walk away from this tragedy. And simply put, let me put it this way to you, Anders, the exit strategy for the Americans, I understand. What's the exit strategy for the people of Afghanistan in this now?
Well, first of all, I think the woman's courage in Kabul really needs to be recognized as incredible.
Absolutely.
And it's just an honor to be on the show with her. And I really commend her for her courage. And I think you're absolutely right. There is no good exit strategy today for the people of Afghanistan, and our hearts have to go out to them for the tragedies that are happening and the tragedies that will happen. And of course, the U.S. must take responsibility for the mistakes it's made. There's no question about that. And there have been mistakes. I think most importantly, a massive intelligence failure where we simply did not foresee the rapid fall of Kabul in the way that it happened. We would not have done what we did had we known that the fall of Kabul would be so quick. And I think it surprised a lot of people, not just Americans. I think a lot of people got surprised. But ultimately, we have to focus on the real criminals here, which are the Taliban. They're Pakistani enablers, and I would argue they're Chinese enablers. The Chinese have put diplomatic cover on the Taliban for years. The Russians have too, and these are the real roots of the problem. I mean, it's definitely starting with Pakistan, but you've got to look at the enablers of Pakistan. Pakistan has for a long time been a Chinese ally. They're following the Chinese rule book here. This is exactly the problem. And so we as allies have to take responsibility for our mistakes, absolutely. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we have to be very clear and lock arms together and take a stand against Pakistan and China.
Yeah, Anders, in that case, I put it across to Nupur and Mohandas Pai from New Delhi and Bengaluru. If Pakistan is providing strategic depth to the Afghans, what has America done there? Nothing. If the Taliban are going back on every word they maybe gave you, I don't know, on how they would treat the people of Afghanistan and Afghan women, what are you doing? Nothing. So Nupur and Mohandas Pai, please. Nupur.
You know, Arnab, there are a few things I want to say. I heard these two gentlemen on your show. I don't know if I should take that as the official stand of the US government. One who said, what is India going to do? And the other gentleman who asked, what has India done in Afghanistan? Well, I'll tell you what, as an official spokesperson of the party which is currently serving at the center in India, I don't know if your questions are the official stand of the government in the US, but I would like to answer these 2 points. Point number 1, well, it was not the Indian side or the government in India or the country India which asked the US to interfere and intervene, perhaps wanting to deal with their own problems by intervening in various other countries. We didn't ask you to do that. Point number 2, the government of India's priority today is the safe, secure evacuation of its people. Point number 3, as the Cabinet Committee on Security under the leadership of our Prime Minister, Sri Modi, has decided a few days ago, not only safe evacuation of our people or even those of an NRI or OCI status, India is also going to consider requests made by Afghani nationals. In fact, our Home Ministry, which is the ministry responsible for immigration, is already working on guidelines to rework the visa regulation for Afghani nationals. Point number 4, and most importantly, what led US to take this decision is for the US to answer. It is absolutely wrong for you to turn your finger around and say India needs to answer. Well, India did not ask you to interfere in Afghanistan.
And Nupur, may I?
And here I want to make one thing clear. Please allow me to finish. Please allow me to finish. Just one more line. Here it is very important. The fact is, whether due consideration was made by US as to how you rightly put it, how Osama bin Laden was found miles away from the ISI headquarters in Ahmedabad, as to how the US has faced that, how US has faced 9/11, that there is an open chance of that problem being resurrected or re-emerged. Secondly, and most importantly, the official spokesperson of the ruling party in Pakistan only today has made a statement that they are going to seek Taliban's help in ensuring that Kashmir breaks away from India. So you are looking at an open-ended issue.
Of course.
Our CDS, Chief of Defence Security Staff, has already spoken today.
Yeah, because I'm totally short of time, and Mohandas Pai, who's been just quiet through the debate, waiting his turn as one of the most vocal panelists from India. He's never been silent for so long, but he's been listening intently. I want to end with you, Mr. Pai.
Thank you.
Yes, please, Mr.
Thank you, Arnab. Thank you, Arnab. Arnab, first of all, the people of Afghanistan did not ask the United States to come into the country. They were suffering. They were suffering the Taliban. They were fighting the Taliban. The United States came unilaterally into Afghanistan for its own security reason. And once they came inside, they promised the Afghan people a better future. And for 20 years, they held fort. They spent a lot of money, educated them, changed the lives of millions of people. And the people of Afghanistan trusted the United States. The United States has every right to walk away from Afghanistan. Nobody can tell them, you have to run Afghanistan forever. They have a right to remove their troops, not to let their citizens get killed, and they have a right to go. And nobody can fault them for going. But what you can fault them is the way they're going. The United States is the greatest power the world has seen. It has leverage with the Taliban to blast them right now and show them what it can do to prevent this violence. It has the ability to tell Pakistan to lay off and put sanctions on Pakistan. So there's a peaceful exit. There has to be a peaceful exit. There has to be a government there which the United States can do and cannot walk away washing its hands off. It has an obligation to the people of Afghanistan. The Afghans respected them, trusted them, and you can't betray that.
Yes.
Right now, because of this great betrayal of the Afghan people, world over, people are asking, can we trust the United States?
Can we trust the US?
Can we trust the United States? The United States has to discharge the obligation. It's not too late. They must call upon the Taliban to stop this violence, to stop this brutality, and have an orderly way out, and ask the United Nations to intervene and to say we will extend the deadline. The Taliban says there are going to be consequences. So be it. So be it. The United States has to act, go against the terrorists, have a way out to get these people out and ensure that there is no more violence there. They cannot throw the people of Afghanistan to the wolves.
We've had a very interesting conversation. I'm only going to have to close down this for want of time, but I wish to take this debate forward because I think we are on to a very important point about the role of India. I'll just say one thing about those who asked about the role of India. I think India's role is great. Our role in Afghanistan was of nation building. We didn't go there for any other reason. We didn't go there based on vested interests. We spent billions of dollars in building Afghanistan's economy and infrastructure. We continue to do so. We've been a true ally. I think the entire situation in Afghanistan is going to lead to a rethink on global geostrategy. And it's very important that significant nations like India, we play our part as well. But it's going to be a rethink. It's going to have a colossal impact on America. Americans may not accept it today. It's going to have a colossal impact on American geostrategy also in the future. I thank you all. I'll come back on this debate much more, and I hopefully get a chance to talk to you all again. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I truly enjoyed this debate. And coming up on the other side tonight, two big debates in a few minutes. As of this minute, there are multiple Congress statements on Pakistan which are openly pro-Pakistan in the lead up to the Punjab elections. My question is simple. Why does the Congress every time, the Vadra Congress, calibrate its views, its opinions in such a manner that directly or indirectly they benefit Islamabad? Much more on that on the other side. Don't go away anywhere.